everyone, welcome to the first ever speed build on this channel. I'm really excited to get started and start building some houses, especially in Sulani. It's really beautiful. As you'll see through this video, it was my first time playing in Sulani. I know that the pack came out over the summer, but I finally purchased it for myself in a bundle with outdoor retreat and patio stuff. So I'm like through this video just seeing what there is and just enjoying building in this beautiful, beautiful ocean world. Right now I'm making like this front walkway. My vision for this is I know I could have been inspired by like any beautiful picture of stilted housing in any tropical location, but there was this video game that came out on PS2 a long time ago, and it was called Everywhere Road Trip. It was basically a RPG racing game where you played as a car that moved through all these different towns, and one of the towns you visited was called Papaya Island, and that place had really lovely stilts with all these rooms connected, or houses connected through like little walkways. So that's what I was trying to recreate. I was originally thinking this would be something like every room of this house would be its own little island that was on stilts. It didn't fully come to fruition. I ended up deciding to have a little front walk area that ends up a bit better than that, and a main house that was really just a bedroom and bathroom and an outdoor kitchen, and then actually also a dock. As you can see right now, I wanted a lot of really curved pieces instead of like the diagonals necessarily for the railings, and this gave me some trouble on this main house here, the bedroom and the bathroom, because I don't think it likes if you start on a rounded piece going into something that's not part of that segment, and vice versa. So you'll see right here I'm not able to like connect these walls, and I think it's because they're on those different parts of building. But yeah, so it was a really fun time to just, I'm not on Christmas break anymore. I just graduated from college, but I did get to go home and spend time with family, and after the holiday was mostly celebrated and my sister had gone back to where she lives and my parents were kind of catching up on their own projects, I took on the Sims again and just enjoyed this build. I had my cat on my lap, which was really lovely. He's grown a lot in terms of just being more social and more open to people handling him. He's about, I think, 12 years old, and yeah, just getting better about trusting people and better with the dogs around him, and it's been a long work in progress, but now you see I kind of copied that front area just to add the shape of the kitchenette first. I did end up making this island slightly bigger. Right now I'm trying to decide what counter. I don't know if I went with the right choice of counters. I did go with that one because it seemed like the most water resistant to me. I did mention that I purchased like the patio living stuff pack, and there was that outdoor counter obviously in that one, but it just didn't seem like the right type of outdoorsy. This one captured the vibe a bit better to me, but the swatches weren't quite right. And also this was my first time playing since they added the update where you could make the columns even higher, so I'm still trying to work with that because I don't know if anyone else's game is like this, if this is the norm, but every time I placed a column it would ask, oh, do you want it to go higher? And I just, no, I don't. I want it to stay as it is. Thank you for asking. I appreciate it, but stop. And like I'm just going to town with all these new items. They were so pretty, and I'm sure everyone to an extent has already experienced how excited they were with these items, but that's the perk about doing things a little later, is you get to be excited a little bit later. So I added those little paneled things in the front because I wanted to add a roof extension that just kind of added a little bit more shape to the top of the build, added a little bit more eye candy. You will see that later. I struggled with inside of this. I mentioned it ends up being a bedroom and a bathroom. I was originally thinking that this would just be kind of a living space, just a place for people to hang out. Maybe this was going to be a family home and this was their living room. it just wasn't working for me. And I think along the way, like, the colors and the items inspired me to kind of imagine who might be living here a bit more and make a build geared toward them. So yeah, this is my first time discovering the lava stone, obviously, and I felt like I really needed that stone wall in the living space and not just in the bathroom, and eventually I changed that and it made so many things better. But yeah, I am currently sitting in a closet. That's pretty fun because I'm trying to minimize sound, but here I'm putting in these plants. I love taking plants and just sizing them to just be like slightly different. Like, if I can get all those little potted plants and make them really miniature, I love stacking them in like little arrangements on desks and like that, because I think that it probably comes from the fact that I just graduated college, and the college that I went to, a lot of events put on by RAs and things like that, they would offer little succulents, and a lot of people had them on their desks as just, you know, like their little decor and something that made them feel homey and sweet. So it's very on my brain. Also, my sister is so into the outdoors and sustainable living that we actually went to the same college for 2 years, and while she was there, the apartment she stayed in were on the exterior surrounded by all these plant clippings that she had collected and potted and were just living outside of her apartment. Her current apartment, which is no longer on campus since she graduated, she did have that, but then the housing management of that place said, you will be evicted if you have this many plants, which we think is strange, but we've since grown past it. I added in like this little sitting area in my mind that you could kind of hang out right there with your towels and whatever. I liked that little rock shelf idea. I'm just exploring items at this point. I never used that. I like that pets item with the fishing supplies, and I thought that would be like a really lovely, colorful addition that was perhaps relevant to this build, but it ended up not being. In my brain, I thought that this might be the home of a early 20-year-old who had perhaps like a very wealthy family member who built this home on the beach. Then they hadn't used it in a while, and then she was like, you know what, no, I'd like to work as a conservationalist and be with nature. If no one's using this place, I will happily stay there if I'm allowed to, and then did. And then perhaps like is very communal and becomes part of the community on this island and hosts little parties, which is why when we get to building the kitchen a bit more, there'll be more seats at the table, and there's that communal food pit also. Yeah, the roof gave me a little bit of trouble just because I don't consider myself the best roofer, so I was having a little bit of self-doubt, but I'm really glad that, what's it called, like the fringe, I forget what the term is, like I think the roof trim, I was really glad that there was the pack-specific roof trim, because it allowed that roof to blend more nicely and hang down in a really lovely way, I felt. I think after I struggle with these bookshelves for a little while, I come to realize that I perhaps want this to be a bit more of a bedroom and a single-person home rather than a family location with a kid's room on its own little island and a family room on its own island and a master bedroom on its own island. No, I'm going to pretend that I can make this a bit more of a living space for a little while longer, and then I will have the realization that I want this to be a bedroom. I'm heading home to, not home necessarily, but I moved after college to a city, and it's lonely there to be in an apartment by myself, but I am trying it out, and maybe it'll fit, maybe it won't. I think after these first like initial months have passed, which I think that I'm in the phase where I can say that I've been there. I'm not fresh. I'm new, but I'm not fresh. So I've already like kind of planted the seeds for meeting a few more people and having some projects happen that I think will be very fun. this kitchen gave me so much trouble because I was so determined to have an outdoor kitchen and have the curve following instead of diagonals, and I was questioning the swatches of those counters. I also switched it from a circular table to a rectangular table in a little bit. But this is kind of like mostly going to be a lot of, does this go here? Should it be this shape? How do I angle this best in a way that a lot of people can move around, but it still works and functions okay? So I expanded the kitchen, and then I made that cooking pit a little bit on a larger island as well. I really wanted to add a bar, and I thought that could be a good place, and then everything seemed like it was worse. But I think the solution I eventually came up with was fine. Since this is my first recording, I'm obviously had a lot of doubts on my brain about like, oh gosh, where do any of these things go? Am I taking too long building a room? Am I switching back and forth too much? I don't really have a system when I build. I kind of just get bored of one thing and move on to another thing, or I get inspired to do something and then I just instantly want to do it. So I don't know if my building is necessarily as sporadic as other builders, and I'm curious to know if I continue building whether I will come up with a system. Like I know that EssieSimsYay certainly has a system. A lot of them start with just the exterior and adding windows, and I don't know, I've just never really built like that. I've tried, but for me, I don't really like adding windows and things like that without knowing necessarily what's going to be on the room inside, because I like to give smaller windows for the bathrooms and everything like that. Maybe other people do that, they go back and edit them, but to me, I like to have a little bit more of a concrete plan and know like, okay, I guess I figure it out room by room than I do exterior into interior. I don't know. I really wanted rugs under these. I felt like it needed it. It turns out it didn't. But this is where I start adding that dock, and right now I'm toying with how big of an arc, like a curve, I can get out of that. And it ends up being the smallest piece. So I just extend that down. I had like a little sitting area I made. It was very simple with 2 lounge chairs, which you will see. And there will be, of course, because it was a new item and I was so excited, a little boat that people can take out onto the sea and voyage and kind of get around more easily, get toward the dolphins and the buoys. Oh gosh, it's such a pretty world. I'm so excited. I don't really play with The Sims. I do play test things, but I don't really play with The Sims. I am so much more fond of just putting items together and adding clutter that adds some detail to people's lives. But that being said, of course, I need to explore, and just the fact that Sulani was emphasizing that there was such a communal aspect of this island living, and you can do odd jobs for people, and of course be a conservationalist, which is separate but also still really exciting for me. I'm eager to see how that actually plays out. I don't quite know how to dock a boat. I hope I did it properly. So I put that little dock there, also one for just swimmers. I put some of, I think they're called spandrels, I hope I'm right, just to add accents to a little bit over the kitchen and over that front walkway. This is where I start making this just a bedroom, so seeing which island living beds there were, and kind of making this idea that if you're in bed, you can see that gorgeous ocean just from sitting there. I liked the idea of the front walk-in also kind of being more connected to the bedroom, so you'll see when I add the side tables for the bed, they're actually kind of meshed into that wall there. And I really wanted to like that orange swatch of the door. I don't remember if I kept that orange door, but I know that I was determined to keep there as long as possible. So there's me adding the side tables into it so it looks a little bit more built in. I always come back to that like kind of candle and like the little gas lamp looking thing, because you can size it down and it still kind of looks homey and like a candle, but it's not. I did not end up using it, but I did end up making this room very pink and flowy, I think, and adding those little chairs there to see what's going on in the realm of people boating on the property. This is where, of course, I discovered the shelf and that lovely desk. And often in my builds, I also, for some reason, end up, I don't know, not necessarily for some reason, I don't really end up putting in TVs. And in this build, I actually, even though I kind of figured this person might write a lot about their experiences and log things, I didn't put a laptop because I just kind of like that touch of, no, we have our environment that we can enjoy and we don't need this laptop. We can do things by hand. And that also goes for TVs. I just feel like if you have free will on, everyone always ends up sitting and watching the TV or jumping on the computer, and I'd rather that they talk to each other. Maybe that's a little bit silly because I just told you that I spent this one day of my holiday, just on a computer. But no, I think it's important to have different forms of fun and to recognize that you can go ahead and play a video game for a little bit. I just got my last shrine on The Legend of Zelda before. Like I mentioned, I live alone, or I don't live alone, but my partner, who I live with, had already gone home, so I was home in the apartment in the city for like about a week and a half, which was to me a little bit too long. And I spent so much time playing Zelda after I worked because it was the thing for me to do to have fun and kind of just not feel scared in the city apartment. Just got the last shrine, and I'm going around enchanting all my clothing because I know that my guess is that once I beat the game, they'll ask me if I want to go back in time to before I beat Ganon, and I don't really have an interest in doing that. I'd rather just enjoy the world as it is now and then go ahead and beat Ganon, help out Zelda, and I'm excited for Animal Crossing. I have never owned an Animal Crossing game myself, but I remember when I was really young, my friend let me borrow her Nintendo DS for, I think, a day or two, and I didn't have a memory card, so I just kept the thing on and on a charger. I don't know, I think she kept her memory card for some reason, but I didn't want to overwrite her files is what it was, and I didn't really know how to do that, or how to avoid doing that, and so I just enjoyed playing this game, and it seemed so cool and, special because I didn't have the device that you could play it on. And so now that there's New Horizons coming out, I'm very excited to enjoy that and compare my progress with my partner because they're also very excited for it. And also Stardew Valley. I played through with just the mad excitement to get the community center complete, but I don't know how my friends keep farming day in, day out, and maybe this update will bring me a little bit more excitement to get back into the world. It's such a good game, but my brain is just not one for continuously farming. Oh gosh, I had this vision that this person might really like, like really cool stones that they could maybe charge in the moonlight. Like some part of them like believed in that. Maybe a friend gifted them one and they thought, oh, this is kind of nice. And so they honored that their friend believed in it through just keeping it and occasionally laying it out near a patch of moonlight or sunlight or whatever. I abandoned that idea because the little wall thing wasn't really letting me place enough that it could look like more naturally placed clutter. So I eventually just had this vision of, I put the camera down and they're here for perhaps like studying nature. I'll have some photography that they took, and I was trying to come up with things that could look like backing on those photos. The bread box almost was a winner, but it didn't touch closely enough, which is why there's a bread box on the floor, just as a possible contender still. Those screens were almost a contender too. It's really fun to try to get items to be things that they're not supposed to be, so things look the way you want them to. I thought about like adding those columns, but it just was too big. Finally, I discovered these little pieces for the roof, and I put those up, and then I could make it look like still part of the wall, and like it was mounting the photos right there. For the other side, I decided to take those really, really pretty curtains and kind of just cover up that design, because I wanted it to look like it just fit a little bit more, and the design didn't. It looked like I just had really gone out trying to fit things together, which was what happened, but I didn't want it to look like that, obviously. So then I thought, okay, maybe let's add a little lamp for reading, some like really natural, traditional, I suppose, to the world beauty, and then a little bit of clutter and some books. I always add books that in a swatch that doesn't go with the shape. I don't know why. Like, it always hurts my own eyes when I pick a book set that doesn't really go with the space I chose, but I keep telling myself, no, that's the nature of books that you read, is that they're not going to match your aesthetic with the cover art necessarily, so get over it. And then I plop them down. There's some sunscreen there too. I added just that little thing to go up because the fencing was bothering me. I couldn't quite fix it. Now I'm just making the fencing all darker. Something I did do that I don't think is captured in this footage is next to all the points where you can come out of the water from swimming, I added like little pool lights on the beams next to the walk-ups, because I felt like if you were swimming in the dark, yeah, you could see that giant glowing house, but if you need to get out of the water fast, you want to know right where that is, especially if it's the dead of night. And so I felt like those little lights would be kind of like, we're here, it's the beacon home. I didn't really know what to do with this front place to be like for such a long time, so I avoided it through this build. Put in other details, like I think I might be about to go into lighting or mess with the roofs. Guess I'm messing with the roofs again. Debating the darker color. So I think I just might delete that. Oh, okay. I'm terrible at predicting what I did, or remembering what I did a few days ago. Here's me starting the lighting process. I was so determined to use Sulani items and not diversify packs, just because, I don't know, it felt like a good thing to consider, but I ultimately didn't. I ended up using the also new For Myself pack, Patio Living, I think is what it's called, yeah. And you'll see in a moment, I'm going to choose those lights and I'm going to start raising them up onto all the little nooks in that. I don't really like making lighting necessarily symmetrical, so I'm just kind of like going along every 3 and making them diagonal like that. Yeah, this is just a section of me making a place that you can see at night, which is, I think, pretty considerate. This ended up being so plain over here, but I felt like I didn't really like know necessarily what to put there, because I felt like this is such a relaxing place, and like I mentioned, I'm more one for enjoying the environment that you're in than like having something there to provide entertainment for you. I mean, I guess bring a book or something, but I was okay with kind of that minimalism. I just, this being my first thing that I'm kind of making a video of and a production of, I was a little bit self-conscious. Over here, I decided to try to do the best I could to make tide pools. I know that the Sims can't explore tide pools and they can't even really walk through these rocks, but I kind of wanted to show that off a little bit. I'm from Northern California, so visits to the Monterey Bay Aquarium and just Monterey in general is really fun, and so many memories of like struggling not to fall into the water and being delighted by little crabs that you see and other creatures, and just the water spilling on into the rocks is so fun. Me trying to pick out plants that look like they could be aquatic, maybe they could grow in some sand, some hidden crates, and then I also hid, along with the rocks, some small little fossils, just because I felt like they were little touches, and that's it. So I hope you enjoyed this build and all the footage. Thanks.